So we shall go on to our next speaker, Dr. Sudarshan, who's the Associate Consultant Uveitis, Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai, with a great presence and publications to his attribute. And he is going to be talking on, is PCR important in the diagnosis of viral anterior uveitis? On to you, doctor. You have to unmute yourself. Dr. Sudarshan?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yes.
And thanks for the opportunity. Specifically thank Dr. Chitra for including me every time in ARC, at least for the last 2 times. So it makes me, and especially in the chat when she keeps prompting us to do things on time, then so you start preparing better. So I was supposed to talk on is PCR important for diagnosis? Yes, like I will be talking on PCR important for diagnosis in viral anterior, but how important it is for diagnosis is what I'll be stressing on. The fact that PCR is definitely important in diagnosis of viral anterior. So when we think of viral anterior, some frequently asked questions come into our mind, like whether this is because of virus, like how do we suspect, when to suspect, and if you're suspecting a viral uveitis, which viruses, and how to differentiate them if possible clinically. And do we need to do PCR always in every patient, and or any other diagnostic modalities we have. So when do we actually suspect a case of viral anterior uveitis? When all to suspect, if you can call it. So when I see scattered KPs all around, or if you have pigmented or granulomatous KPs in that, like as Dr. Vishali was telling, even Fuchs is, I am fond of this classification nowadays. Fuchs is a microgranulomatous uveitis. So probably any granulomatous uveitis, anything with KPs, or any corneal lesion with granulomatous KPs, or like this sectoral iris atrophy. I think like this is one of the most used or abused picture. Anybody from Shankar Nethralaya used this for viral uveitis, and that's so classical of Dr. JB's patient that we all use it liberally. So if you have a scattered KPs, corneal lesion with granulomatous KPs, or sectoral iris atrophy, then we suspect viral etiology. Along with that, if you have a raised IOP, or if you have herpes zoster scars in any patient, then you're probably dealing with a patient of a viral uveitis. So any uveitis with raised IOP with this kind of presentation, suspect viral. So which virus you want to suspect? So in India, commonly it is herpes simplex, varicella zoster, or CMV. CMV of late we've been thinking of it much more common, at least in the last decade. Uncommonly rubella probably, and it's more common in Western world compared to our studies here. Herpetic obviously is the most common cause. The range of herpetic presentation in infectious uveitis in India varies based on studies from which center it comes from. Uncommonly, we have HTLV, EBV, chikungunya when it was in the rage. People reported the Fuchs-like presentation, and Ebola, Zika. HIV obviously can cause anterior uveitis. Now COVID seems to beat them all. Like so, COVID can present with anything and everything, I guess. So how do you differentiate clinically? Most of them, whenever you have a unilateral presentation like this, you think of viral, but it doesn't mean that it is never bilateral. HSV is bilateral in about 18% patients, but CMV also can be equally bilateral. You get this coin-shaped lesions or immune ring, which is supposedly very characteristic of CMV. All of them are granulomatous. Sometimes they can present as non-granulomatous or stellate diffuse pigmented KPs. Sectoral iris atrophy is very classical, but they can have patchy or diffuse atrophies, and all these presentations are never 100%. Like so, you can see the various numbers: 25%, 18%, and things like this. So when you have these overlapping features, you have to confirm the etiological agent by PCR. So PCR is essential in the diagnosis of viral anterior uveitis, ideally in all suspected cases. But if you have logistic issues, then let's see a few examples where it definitely helps. So this is one patient who had scattered granulomatous KPs, younger female. So the initial granulomatous workup was negative. So any granulomatous uveitis, you don't straight away do an intraocular specimen evaluation. So as we've been seeing about how lab tests or microscopy, slit lamp biomicroscopy, or even imaging can help in the diagnosis. But when these things don't help you in the diagnosis, and if it is recurrent, then probably intraocular specimen evaluation is necessary. This was a patient where ACTAP PCR was HSV positive, and RT-PCR was also showing significant copies. Significantly, PCR for CMV and VZV was negative. So you make sure that it is a confirmed case of viral uveitis and treat them. So any gram-negative uveitis, even if it is young or old, especially if it is unilateral, think of, after ruling out the blood gram-negative workup, think of viral as an etiology. So if the same gram-negative uveitis with, if there is raised IOP, and if it is bilateral, obviously we don't think of viral as a first etiology, as was this patient, which is referred to us, who was treated with YAG-PI, treated with ATT, somebody in between treated the patient with acyclovir, thinking it is viral. But luckily for us, by the time the patient came to us, he was fed up of all the treatment, and he came to us like this. So this was a kind of giveaway finding for us. So there was a classical lesion which was very indicative. It was showing us on the face that it was probably viral. So we did ACTAP, and CMV was positive in this. So like we always think of classical corneal lesions like this being in HSV or VZV, but this was CMV. So when it is bilateral sometimes, or chronic recurrent cases, you always think of CMV as one of the important causes. So rule out CMVs. In ruling out CMV among these herpes group is very important, because acyclovir may be effective, is effective in HSV and VZV, but it doesn't work on CMV. So CMV needs specific treatment with ganciclovir. So it's very important that you pick up CMV, treat it correctly, so that you don't, the patient doesn't end up with corneal glaucomatous changes associated vision loss. So we're talking so much about PCR. Is it so foolproof? So because one of this patient, another patient referred to us, the treating ophthalmologist had gone in the right direction, done an ACTAP, which is negative for HSV and VZV and MTB. So this patient had stopped all the medications and came to us with, when he came, he had active inflammation with raised intraocular pressure. So we luckily, see, this is one thing that is very important. Like how we do when we are in MBBS, we are taught about this malaria. So whenever there is chills or rigors, like we used to be told as interns that you'll have to go take the blood test. So it's like that. Like when there is IOP high, so it's better you do the ACTAP during that time. So the chance of you picking up the PCR positivity is much higher in that situation. So you should also be lucky when the patient presents to you that way first. So this, so we repeated the tap and it turns out to be positive, because we had done probably like in the time of the IOP rise. So like Avinash is just telling, sometimes you may not get the right fish in the first round. Maybe you can try again and again fishing it. Then if you're in the right direction, you might get it. So we're talking about how foolproof is PCR. So obviously when IOP spike is there, you do the test, but negative PCR does not exclude viral etiology, because sometimes the viral load may be low, the sample may be not adequate. Sometimes the DNA is very short-lived. So there are some multiple reasons why we may not get it positive. That's why it was the case in that patient, as was in this patient. It is a 42-year-old HIV positive, very good CD4 counts, almost immunocompetent equivalent. This was, I had done an ACTAP in 2009, and after that, whenever it was coming with anti-uveitis, I was treating with scattered KPs on and off, was being treated as IRU. So I was wondering that it's a Fuchs-like IRU. But one of the visits, the patient came back with raised, with increased inflammation, with this patchy kind of iris changes. So I resuspected virus and presented, when this patient presented with these subtle iris changes. And I realized that probably when iris changes are more, the chance of PCR positivity seem to be high, and it's better to think of doing an intraocular specimen evaluation at that time. PCR as such is a preferred technique in immunocompromised individuals. So talking of HIV again, HIV can cause anti-uveitis due to immune recovery uveitis or drugs or opportunistic infections, but can be a primary manifestation of HIV itself, which we had actually published in a case series, which was diagnosed based on real-time PCR. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion. But when you have a real-time PCR diagnosis, then it can be very helpful in diagnosing a primary HIV-induced uveitis. Others like EB virus or HTLV chikungunya can also cause anti-uveitis. So we saw that qualitative PCR can be false positive or false negative. So what if you're stuck? Then look for the viral load. Let's say opt for quantitative PCR. So quantitative PCR can actually give you how much copies of viruses are there, and it can give you the viable genomes. So this was one patient, a 42-year-old male, who was a PCR proven CMV anti-uveitis, treated appropriately with oral and topical ganciclovir gel. But this patient recurred again with much higher copies the next round. So you can see the typical description of a CMV anti-uveitis, the KP's distribution. So this was actually published by Dr. JB and Dr. Vinita Rao. So this actually helps us that our real-time PCR can be not just for the diagnosis, you can monitor the course of the disease. So when the copies can come down, you can decide about reducing the dose of the treatment or maintaining it on long term. So real-time PCR gives a marker of severity, while qualitative PCR gives a screening technique. A high CMV viral load can be a significant risk factor. It can indicate that the patient can go in for an IOP rise, a secondary glaucoma, and you need to be aggressively treating with anti-glaucoma medications. They can also have a reduced endothelial cell count. These patients seem to be more prone. So is the case with the high VZV viral load, where severity of iris atrophy and pupil distortion is higher in these patients. So for a small note on what else can we do along with PCR, probably like PCR sometimes becomes negative at later stages of the disease. When the disease starts becoming chronic, sometimes you may not pick up. So Goldman-Whitmer coefficient is one test that can take time to get positive. It may take about 2 weeks to 3 weeks for it to become positive, but it remains positive for long. So although it is less specific than PCR, probably due to the cross-reactivity, it may not be very helpful in immunocompromised, but in immunocompetent, a combination of PCR and Goldman-Whitmer may increase the diagnostic yield. Virus cultures doesn't seem to be practical. Imaging, there has been classical description of ASOCT, coin-shaped lesions, or an owl-eye cells in confocal microscopy. So for all this confusion to be clarified, the Sun working group classification has a key criteria nowadays. Unilateral anterior uveitis is the most important thing that you have to think of viral. If you want to make a diagnosis of a VZV anterior uveitis, it has to be either an aqueous PCR VZV positive assay along with sector iris atrophy or skin lesions. If it is HSV, along with the AC-TAP positivity, sector iris atrophy in a patient who is younger, and the corneal lesions. But they didn't find any clinical feature which was reliably based on which we could definitely say that it is CMV. So for CMV, probably a AC-TAP PCR is the diagnostic method. So to summarize, viral anterior uveitis can have classical clinical features that can be overlapping. So it's very important when you do the AC-TAP, and it can help confirm non-viral etiologies also with similar presentations. Timing is crucial. PCR is very important in knowing the etiology, differentiating between CMV and HSV or VZV because treatment varies. And quantitative PCR, real-time PCR is very reliable. When in doubt, intraocular specimen evaluation. Thank you. I've liberally used a lot of points from these references, especially Kalpana's and Dr. Chi's article. Thank you.
That was an amazing talk, Dr. Sudarshan. I actually had a lot of questions to ask you, but everything got answered. Dr. Mudit, you have anything to ask him? Because we are short of time, we should go on to our next speaker.
Just one question, Dr. Sudarshan. So, sir, how much is the percentage?
Can you stop sharing your screen, Sudarshan?
Yeah.
Of PCR in your lab? In the sense, how much is the specific sensitivity which you will attribute to PCR? In how many percentage of cases will it turn out to be positive?
Yeah. I probably feel like 2/3 of the cases. I'm not. I don't have the specific number. Probably like every second person or every like 1 in 2 in 3 patients probably get positive.
All right.
We have just analyzed the viral retinitis, where is about 30% cases we found negative, in spite of seeing that typical viral retinitis. So PCR can be negative. So phenotype is quite important. We can make a treatment based on the
probably phenotype. That's the same thing, sir. Like 1 in 3 being negative, like 2/3 being positive, probably in anterior also.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.